Hi, I'm Tavis. Welcome to Stories of Resilience. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast. I'm joined today with our special guest, Crystal Ishihara. Crystal, thank you so much for taking time to be a part of this podcast as well as sharing your story today. To start us off, Crystal, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? Maybe kind of what you do, what are some things you're into right now, whether it's like a show, whether it's music, a
Yeah,
podcast like this one, right? Or maybe like fun, interesting facts about yourself. Yeah.
sure. I am a therapist here at Okapic. I work with Project Hope. In addition to that, I am also a professor. I work for both Hope International University and the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I'm also an artist and a consultant. I do internal consulting and external consulting for businesses.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to Crystal, every time I talk to you, I feel like what is something you don't do? I feel like you're in a lot of things.
No, I'm not a hiker. Lots of people always say they like to hike. I'm like, that's not me. I'm a Netflix girl.
Oh yeah. Is there any show that you're watching on Netflix right now where it's like, oh, kind of glued to it, or
I'm gonna say my guilty pleasure is The Circle. I'm
okay,
always behind on it, but I really just like the human dynamic
okay,
of the people. Just finished watching Paradise, which that was really, really good.
okay.
Um, but in terms of things I'm into, I'm more of a reader. So
Mm,
I just finished Matters of the Heart by Dr. Tama Bryant.
okay.
She is the former APA president. And I am starting The Deepest Well by Nadine Burke Harris. She's
Wow.
the former California Surgeon General.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. It's
Just
been
a
fun.
cool fact about Crystal here is that she's also an author. I know you just mentioned that you're really into reading books.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal's an author. Soon, one of her newest books will be published, but we'll save that portion till the end of the podcast. And we'll love to give you some time to talk about it, how that book came about, and just to let us know even when it's going to be published. So we'll save that part for the end.
Yeah.
So, how did you start off in higher education? How did you get into it? As well as, can you share with us what was that like for you, that season of life being in higher ed?
Yeah. I was originally pursuing a master's in industrial organizational psychology. I finished that master's. I got a PhD in business psychology. And through the course of those programs, I kind of was a student worker. I was just trying to kind of fund a living at that point. And my previous boss became a mentor to me. She saw that I was good at certain things and really just kind of she dragged me into the field, I'm going to say. And it was sort of a thing where she just had upward trajectory. So she would get a promotion and just slot me into her old job. And we just kept doing that over and over again.
Okay.
So I was very fortunate that I got to learn from her and see kind of what I could do in that field. I will say it wasn't where I intended to start, but I did make it my own when I could. So, like I said, I went to school for industrial organizational psychology, business psychology, which is the study of people at work.
Okay, I was just going to ask. I was like, industrial psychology, business psychology. I'm like, I understood psychology, but how does it come together? Can you share with us a little bit, like what are those? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to think about there's mental health, there's clinical psychology, and that is how to support people that are having a difficult time, right? Business psychology is how to take the systemic lens of clinical psychology and applying it into a business setting.
Wow.
So when I was 16, I got my first job, absolutely hated my employer, and just ever since then had wanted to affect change at a more macro level. And I thought that business psychology was going to be the way to do that. I was like, people spend most of their day at work, so I want to help them where they're spending a lot of their time. The longer I was in the field, the longer I felt like this isn't really what I want to do. But I did learn a lot and gain a lot of skills over the course of that time. But you asked, like, what was that stage of life like for me? I was like young in my 20s, just trying to hustle and get things going. I was just trying to, pay to live in Southern California and survive. So every time a position came up, I just went for it because it was seeking like financial stability at that point. And I also just had a really great mentor. I love her. She was amazing. And it was really hard to say no to it. But I did learn a lot. I really appreciated the experience, and I feel like it has really helped just who I am as a person, who I am as a clinician as well.
Right. Being in higher ed, what were some of the like challenges that you've encountered and faced? But maybe apart from your relationship with your mentor and being able to learn all these experiences, what were some highlights as well that you look back and like, whoa, this was really hard. These were things that are difficult. But at the same time, but this was really great. Part of that season of my life.
Yeah. I'll start with the highlights. I got pretty high up in the field. I was the director of academic record compliance for about 6 years. And through the course of that position, I was in charge of 6 different universities, their registrar's offices, which is where we handle regulatory compliance. So a lot of what I had to do was understand what the DOE was putting out and then helping all of the universities implement that in a way that would make sense for students.
Wow.
So it was really cool to be in spaces where everybody there they're kind of important. They've kind of got all of these years of experience behind them. Like at a certain point, I worked for the highest paid man in higher education. And it was really cool to be a part of a lot of that. At the same time, when you're in those types of spaces, there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of, sort of bluster and bravado and, you should listen to me because I have all of these years of experience, not you should listen to me because I understand the situation and I can come up with a solution that's going to make sense. So one of my jobs was to bring in new schools and help them like adjust to our system. I didn't like find the schools, but once they were coming in, it was like, okay, your record system is a certain way. We need to adjust it to our system. And it was a lot of change management. And it was really cool to see when things went well, but it was also a lot of headache because constantly talking to university presidents, talking to VPAAs, talking to people that they just want you to do it. They don't really want to know all of the ins and outs. And when there's a problem, they just want you to fix it. So I would say the egos were a really difficult thing. And I got to learn a lot from what it meant to manage those egos.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot. You kind of mentioned that you're overseeing 6 universities. Were those universities in SoCal? Were they out of state?
All over the country. We had Washington, D.C., Chicago, Texas, quite a few in California. And then after I left, they actually brought on a university in Kansas.
Gotcha. That's a lot.
Yeah, lots of travel.
Yeah.
That was fun. Just like, oh, okay, I got to be in Chicago for a week and then DC for a couple of days. And I was actually in Texas when there was like a crazy snowstorm. So lots of fun travel stories, but lots of just like traveling for work sounds like it's fun. It's not that fun because you're still working.
Right. I always thought, hey man, if you could travel a lot for work, that's a lot of traveling. And it's like, oh, it seems like fun. But when I talk to people who travel like every week for work, they're like, it gets tiring. Like I'd rather just stay home.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like I haven't traveled much, but I can understand the packing, unpacking, and having to get on and wait and fly and come back. And it is a lot.
There was a certain point where I just had like a suitcase that was my like work travel bag. Yeah. So it was like, okay, you got to be in Chicago, you got to be in San Francisco, you have to drive up to Santa Barbara. Is always something.
Right. Yeah. Were there like pivotal moments in higher ed or in that season of life, events or things that happened where you felt like, hey, I want to maybe explore a different field, a different career. Were there moments in that season of life where you started to feel this urge or even want to, I want to explore what's out there, even going into the mental health field? What happened? What were those pivotal moments during that season of life for you?
Yeah, I am one of the people that am a little bit grateful for COVID. That's probably terrible to
Mm,
say. I'm obviously not grateful for what happened
right,
and the
right,
loss and everything, but at that point in my life, I was just going, going, going,
mm,
right? I didn't really have the moment to pause and reflect.
mm,
And during COVID, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't do anything. So I really had to be by myself and reflect
mm,
and think, what what am I doing? Is this something that I want in my life?
right.
And like shortly after we got locked down, right, the George Floyd murders happened.
Mm,
And it just really struck me that I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to be doing.
mm,
I wasn't making an impact on my surroundings, my friends, my
mm,
people, the way that I wanted to. And I went to this training where they basically said, impact your circles of
mm,
influence. And I just looked at myself and was like, my circles of influence are not what I want them to be.
mm,
I did try to stay in higher education for a while. I started the anti racism collaboration
mm,
at the university that I was at. We had really great speakers for like about a year and a half. One of
mm.
them was Mike Brown Sr.
Wow.
Just like hearing all of these stories from everyone, it
Mm,
just felt like, oh, I need to hear this as much as I need to bring this to the university.
mm,
And I needed to realize that I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do. It wasn't enough
mm,
for me. I always had this sort of trickle down mentality. I'm going to work
mm,
at the system level, and then any change I make that's positive, it's going to get down to the people at the
mm,
bottom. And
mm,
the more I saw that it wasn't happening,
mm,
the more I was like, this is not it for me. I need to find something else.
right.
And my undergraduate degree was actually in psychology and advertising.
Okay.
So I went the more corporate route with
Mm,
that degree. And my partner is a therapist. He's been
mm,
a therapist for a long time at this point, also a professor. And I had just been seeing what he was doing
mm,
and felt like I should be doing that.
mm,
I would rather be exhausted because I spent all day helping people
mm,
than be exhausted because I spent all day fighting with other people's
mm,
egos
mm.
about what is the right way
Right,
to
right.
implement software upgrade or something in a system, right? It's like, it's so different to think about, okay, we're going to type in this code versus we're going to change this person's life.
Right, right.
And seeing him make that impact all the
Mm,
time, seeing how he was exhausted but not
mm,
unhappy, that made a big impact on me.
right,
And I was like, I think I need to change.
right.
And I I ran away from mental health when I
Mm,
was in my 20s. I kind of felt like I'm not emotionally mature enough for
mm,
this right now, which is why I went the corporate route.
mm,
And when I got into my 30s, when COVID happened, I was like, oh, maybe I am in a better space.
mm,
And I do feel like it was the more appropriate time for me.
mm.
Not that people in their 20s can't do it, but
Right,
I
right,
personally,
right,
like,
right.
I would not have been a good therapist at 20. That would have hurt some people. But yeah, I just
Mm,
I think because I had all that time to reflect,
mm,
I really felt like I need to do something that's better for
mm,
myself. I need to change something because I come home angry. I come
mm.
home just degraded
Right,
and
right.
tired, and I don't feel like any of it's worth it. Like the money
Mm,
was good,
mm.
absolutely, but when COVID's happening, it doesn't matter how much money you have.
Right, right,
Like you can't
right. You're not going
circumvent
anywhere.
like all
Yeah.
the things, right? So it was like the money doesn't matter. I need to do
Mm,
something that matters to me. And
mm.
um, all of that's like internal,
Right,
right?
right.
My partner didn't know I was thinking any of those
Mm,
things. Like my family didn't know, but I knew. So had to have a tough conversation with him and be like, I think I need to go back to school. I think I need to pursue this because I'm the only one that knows something's wrong. I'm the only one that can do something about it. Right. And I wanted to make an impact with my life.
Right. So. Right. It kind of sounds like when you're sharing the macro level, you've tried it, you've done it. And I feel like it's great that you had that experience, because now you know maybe that corporate side is not for me, but it seems like you realized during COVID that maybe more the micro kind of coming down and just working one-on-one with people, that might be what's fitting for me in this season of life, at least. And you know, I kind of tell people too, it's like, hey, it's great that you've had that experience, because now you know. You wouldn't have known unless you were in that space, because sometimes I feel like you would think, what if, but it's like you don't have that what if because you've done it. And it's like, now I know kind of this is a space I want to be in. And it's kind of shocking for me. I kind of curious. I'm like, I kind of want to see Crystal in the 20s, where you feel like you would have been a bad therapist, because what I know of you right now, I'm like, no, I can't imagine that.
Well, I was working like 3 jobs. I didn't sleep. When I wasn't working, I was hanging out with friends. Like, I just can't imagine that I would be emotionally able to support a person, because I was kind of held together with caffeine and like prayer. I don't know.
Right.
Like, it wasn't really, I was surviving. I was not functioning.
Right.
Yeah. I will say, I don't necessarily feel like I'm choosing micro versus macro. I think I'm choosing the industry where I want to be impactful, because the plan after I finish up my associateship and my license is to go start my own company and start to make systemic change at that level. So it's taking what I know, it's turning it into what makes sense from my perspective for the industry. So working on getting associates that are paid well, that get the hours they need and the time they need it, get the supervision, but also like are getting consistent client load, not relying on like inconsistent funding. Like, we're going to be working with insurances and stuff, and then taking that model and teaching it to other people that want to start their own private practices that are working long term. Because my partner's been in so many different career, like he's been in so many different positions where it wasn't managed well. People didn't take care of him very well. And I got to see all of that from the sidelines. I've been very fortunate that has not been my experience here. It's almost like I don't have fuel for that personally, but knowing his story, it's been really important to want to make that kind of change in the system. And then hopefully we make that shift for enough people that people start to see there's a different way.
Right. That's awesome. 15 years in higher ed, I think that's how long you were in higher education. That's a long time in one career. Pivoting from one field to another, especially after spending 15 years of your life in one, what was it like for you? What were some of the thoughts, the feelings that you had during that season of transition?
Yeah, I think it felt overwhelming and exciting. It was overwhelming because I was still working full-time while I was going through my master's program, still working full-time while I was finishing the master's program, doing my practicum here. It was a lot. And you would think that I would just hate it. Like, oh, it's too much. I'm overwhelmed. It's not worth all of this. But I was in a place where I was so unhappy with what I was doing. It literally felt like relief to come be a therapist with Okapica. I would work from like 7 to 3 at my day job and, you know, talk people through whatever project we were working on at that time, whatever change management, whatever policy implementation, whatever new thing the DOE had thought up for that month. And I would just finish there and come to Ocapica for my practicum hours, and that would be like 3 to 6, 3 to 7. It's a long day.
Right.
And I think anybody from the outside would have thought, like, what is she doing? How is she like alive? Right. And it just kept like confirming for me that this was the right thing. I would see clients and I would feel like, this is what I wanted. This is what I'm meant to do.
Right.
This is where it feels like I am making that impact that I wanted. So it was definitely hard. And I feel for anybody that's in a similar situation, but it was joyful for me because everything in the morning was just like, ugh, I'm tired. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I couldn't wait to be done with my master's, done with the practicum, so I could go out and be a therapist for real.
Right. Yeah. When you think about, when you say 7 to 3, and then from 3 to 6 or 7, that's almost a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
Right?
And then sometimes I'd have to go to class after that too. So it would be really, really long days. But like I said, I would rather be doing a 12, 15-hour days sometimes, learning about stuff that mattered versus like, one of the things I had to do was kick people out of school. And that was like really terrible and one of the worst things, right? And it would be like, I have to be this sort of villain. Like, you're not, that's not what it is. Like, that's the job. And really, if a student is needing to be removed from the university, there's a very good reason. We don't kick people out for nothing, right? But it wears on you after a while, and doing that in the morning and then coming to spend time with little kids here or helping a client get through a tough thing, it just felt like, okay, this is uplifting to me.
Would you say that doing your day job and then coming here, providing, therapy and the care to the young children that you're working with, would you say that was kind of, in a way, a form of self-care, or were there other things that really helped you? Because you're saying went to work, practicum, sometimes even went to school after.
Yeah.
What helped you to kind of stay like rooted and stay grounded and still be okay to function day to day while having such a jam-packed schedule?
Well, I think it felt like years of self-abandonment. So being a therapist felt like coming back to myself.
Okay.
Like, I could reach for empathy again, as opposed to I need to be stoic because we're talking about really, really like high level policy changes and stuff. So it felt like coming back to myself. I don't know if it's self-care necessarily, but just like I learned who I was again. And I think after so many years of having to feel like a robot, it felt like I could breathe.
Yeah. You kind of mentioned self-abandonment. Do you mind touching on that a little bit? Like, what do you mean by self-abandonment?
I mean, it's the like kicking kids out of school. Nobody grows up wanting to do that for a job, right? Nobody grows up wanting to be like, I'm the person that reads legislation to make sure that we're awarding the right amount of federal funding to a student. I'm the person that writes a schedule for all of the holidays and academic calendar stuff. I'm the person that tells somebody the way they're doing something is really, really wrong, and now they have to change it. It's going to create all these problems for them. Like, that's not who I wanted to be growing up. I actually wanted to be an author growing up.
Okay.
So author and then psychologist, and then fell into higher education, just kind of got stuck there. So I think going back to like, what did I want to do as a kid? That made a really big difference. And coming back to becoming a therapist, I think that just lined itself up really well. And you have to imagine that if you're in a room with a whole bunch of other doctors and university presidents, there's so much ego. You have to project a certain level of confidence to even have a seat at that table. And I think I've gotten well practiced at projecting confidence, but I'm not a confident person. So it just felt very much like I always had to be a fake version of myself. Not fake, but a more put together, more professional, more acceptable version. Right. And that feels like self-abandonment if you do it for too long.
I feel like what you just said right now about, man, I had to project confidence, but I'm not a confident person. I feel like people tuning in, that probably hit a lot of notes right there. It hit my note too, right? And I was like, yeah. I get you, you know? Wow, I'm so curious. I know this wasn't part of our plan,
That's
but
okay.
since you kind of shared about it, like what helped you to get to that point of, rather than having to just project confidence, how did you build self-confidence? Like what helped you?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a little bit fake it till you make it. Like you have to project it so you know what it feels like when it, and what it looks like when it's received, but also just practice. I mean, I always talk about the brain in therapy, but you have to build the pathway. And if you don't practice it, you're not going to feel like it. Confidence isn't, I was reading this book, I think his name's Jefferson Fisher. He's actually on Instagram, but he basically said, like, confidence isn't a feeling, it's a practice. We think that we can just feel confident, but we have to act confident. We can feel safe in acting confident. We can feel happy. We can feel also worried and scared and angry, but the act of confidence is different. So I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, it was a lot of practice. Okay. It was a lot of, I need to do this, so I'm going to do it. And then I think I also would practice confidence in spaces that I wanted to, not places where I felt like I had to. At work, it felt like I need to have the confidence. I need to speak up. I need people to listen to me because my job depends on it. But when I'm a professor, on the one hand, people kind of defer to you because you're the professor, but I got to practice being confident in a place that felt welcoming. People were interested and engaged. I teach research methods, so they're all nervous kids when they come into my classroom, right? And I also found that projecting that confidence gave them confidence that I knew what I was doing, so I was going to help them. So I think realizing that it was helpful to other people was a big deal. Okay. And then same thing with clients, right? If you project confidence, if you believe in what you're talking about, they'll believe it too.
That's important. If someone's tuning in and they're in this maybe fork in the road in their life, like, man, I've been in this career for 15, 20 years, but for whatever reason, I'm thinking of shifting my career, and there's a lot of thoughts and feelings that they might be experiencing. I was 15 years in my old career too, and jumping into this field, another nonprofit sector, it was like, it was challenging, it was intimidating at first. What would you say, how would you encourage somebody who's in that place of life right now, and they're like, oh, should I do it, should I not, or what would you say to somebody?
We only get this one life, right? Like, you should choose a life that makes you happy, that makes the impacts that you want it to make. Okay. And in my situation, like, nobody was going to push me to do it. I was performing well. People really still miss me in that job. My partner thought everything was okay because I was very good at faking like everything was fine. So you have to be reflective. You have to know that you want to change. Right. And then you have to be the one to look for it. It has to matter. It has to not just be, this is bad, so I need to try something else. It's like, I want to. Right. I think if you want to do something, it's so much more motivating than if you need to do it. The other thing I always lean back on, especially when I was first starting this field, is, it had been a long time out of out of psychology in that perspective. And I just thought, oh, I'm going to show up to class. I'm going to be like the old kid there. I'm going to be the one that like, everybody's like, why are you back in school? You should like just stay where you are. And my partner actually gave me like this little note. It was off of one of those daily calendars things. And he saw it, he ripped it off and he gave it to me. And he was like, this is for you. And it said, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I still have it. I still look at it from time to time because that's so true. I have not that many years in mental health as a therapist. I think I have almost 3 years, but I have so many years of being a human, being an employee, a manager, working in internal consult. Like I have all this experience and there are transferable skills. There are things that make this job easier, I think, for me. One of the things that everybody would say at my old job I was good at was translating really technical language into really like easily digestible language for higher up folks. And that is therapy so much of the time. So it's telling stories, it's translating to clients. And I learned all of that from being in higher education. So you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience.
That's awesome. I love that. Now as a clinician, Crystal, how would you say your past life experiences have shaped you as a clinician, the way you provide services, as well as what are some lessons that you've learned throughout your journey and that impact you even to this day?
Yeah, I think going back to a little of what I said, the translation has been really, really impactful and helpful. I know I was talking and complaining about it, but being around a lot of big egos all the time, it really helps you to know how to be in that same space with someone. And I work with a lot of parents. And I think parents who are coming in are sometimes afraid that they messed their kid up or they did something wrong or they're going to get in trouble for something because their kid is seeing us. And egos are very fragile things, and there's a balance of taking care of the ego and still showing somebody there's more that they can learn. I learned that in higher education, right? Very often I'm telling presidents of schools like, we can't really do it that way anymore. We're going to lose a lot of money. We're going to lose federal funding. We can't continue this way. And also, you're still a really great president, and this is not your fault, you know, and that's not the exact formula, but with parents, it is very much like, you're not a bad parent. You are doing a good job. I'm just teaching you one more thing that might make this a little bit easier for you and your kid. So managing egos at that level makes it a lot more palatable to manage egos with parents, and just reaching for that empathy. I think for a long time when I was in higher ed, I just thought, oh, these people are jerks, you know? And actually through the course of my master's program for marriage and family therapy, I really started to see, no, egos come from a place of fear and hurt and like wanting to do the best that they can, being very afraid that they don't know how to do that. And I look at parents the same way. I look at clients that feel like they have everything together, but this one thing is wrong. And, you know, it makes it so much easier to talk to them at that level of like, everything is okay, and we can learn this one other thing.
Being a parent myself, the way you phrased it, saying, hey, you're not a bad parent. I'm just trying to teach you maybe a new skill or something different. It's like, oh, like that's so good to hear, right? It's like because as a parent, it's like you're trying to do your best. You're doing what you can. One thing I learned from my therapist is like, man, you have the tools that were given to you, and sometimes the toolbox or your tools are maybe not as many.
Yeah.
But here, I'm here to teach you and give you another tool that you can try that might work better. I'm like, oh, the way that you phrase that, it's
Yeah.
so important. I feel like, I've never worked at the level that you've worked, but I can only imagine again, people being in those higher positions. There's so much ego, but you being able to communicate to them and relay information. I'm like, oh, it's such a skill, and I think it's so important too, right? Because even people with a lot of ego, they're probably dealing with a lot of insecurity, hurt,
Yes.
and a lot of
Absolutely.
that, but they're just kind of covering that up because, like you said, I have to be able to project that I'm okay and I got
Yeah.
everything like under control.
Yeah.
But someone like you to be able to come in and be like, yeah, I see what's really going on.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be able to communicate to you in a certain way where you're still going to have some of that ego, but it's also teaching you something new and different. So
Yeah.
that's so powerful.
Thanks. I think I also, because I worked for such a large organization, I always had to think from a systems perspective. How is one thing we do in this department going to impact all of these other departments? How is one thing we do at this one school going to impact these other schools? And families are the same way. If you think about it, like, okay, if we make this one change with this client that's in front of me, what's mom going to do? What's dad going to do? What's brother, sister, whatever going to do? And it makes it a lot easier to accept when you kind of make that shift and then the family kind of freaks out. It's like, okay, that's totally understandable. How do we still help? How do we still make a difference? If I can help it, I try and get them in here so we prepare for the change, because that's what I would have done at the organizational level as well. Sometimes we can't do that, and that's okay too.
What would you say to somebody who is maybe on the fence, maybe because of stigma, for whatever reason, they're like, therapy, I've heard my friends, family members, people around me that receive therapy and they're getting a lot of help, but I'm kind of on the fence of I want to do it, or maybe I want my child to get therapy, but just a lot of fear and things maybe holding them back. What would you say to somebody who might be on the fence of, getting therapy, getting help?
Everybody can use a little bit more help. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with you.
Right.
I think that growing up, at least with my generation, like, if you went to therapy, you were crazy, right? And that's just not true.
Right.
That was never true. And I think people are starting to understand now that it's not. I think mental health issues have always been portrayed at a very extreme level. Like, you think about the way media portrays schizophrenia, or they do movies on like dissociative identity disorder. Like, they make mental health issues seem very, very scary. And they don't always show what can be done. They don't always show that it can get better, that there is hope. So I would say, like, therapy is not for you because something's wrong with you. Therapy's for everybody because everybody could use a little bit of extra help, right? I think about it sort of intergenerationally. You were saying that your therapist said you started off with a certain set of tools and I'm just giving you additional tools. You have to think about, what tools did your parents have? What tools did their parents have? What was impacting them that led them to this certain point to be able to pass down certain tools to you? And if their life has been difficult, immigration history, like trauma, anything like that, they're not going to have as many tools. Why wouldn't you come to somebody to get more tools? Like, we are the mental health hardware store. Like, if you've been using a hammer this whole time when you needed a screwdriver, we've got the screwdriver. Why wouldn't you come find that? The difficulty is they don't know they need a screwdriver. The hammer's been working this whole time, or working, right? So, yeah, like, we're just here to show them that we have tools that maybe they didn't get access to for no fault of their own.
Thank you for sharing that. Really hope that people are tuning in that maybe are on the fence, that they would be encouraged and find the, how would you say it, like the courage to say, hey, maybe I can try it out and see how it is for me. Because I know I was resistant at first to therapy. I was like, what do I even talk about? What questions are they going to ask me? How do I even talk about these things? But the moment I started, I was like, oh, I see how helpful this is. And it's not because, like you said, I have a problem, I have an issue, I'm crazy, anything like that. But even for the fact of, hey, I want to have self-exploration, find out more of who I am, like my makeup and things like that.
Yeah.
So I found it to be super helpful. So I really hope anyone that's tuning in would hear what you just said, and would be encouraged to say, hey, let me reach out, let me try it out.
I think also our society has made it really, really taboo to express our feelings.
Right.
And it makes sense from a like generational trauma perspective, right? Survival doesn't have space for feelings. You think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you're allowed to have feelings at the top of that pyramid, not the bottom. If your grandparents, your parents were still just trying to survive, they couldn't teach you how to express your feelings. If you're in a space now where you're having the feelings and they need to go somewhere and you don't know how to express them, that's what therapy is for. A couple of my clients, I will tell them regularly, therapy is for crying, because where else is there a space for you to cry? And it is just so easily accepted, right? It doesn't have to be crying. It can be yelling, screaming, laughing, whatever. But often it is crying.
Yeah, that's so true. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Going back to you being an author. We've been waiting for this moment too. The most recent book that you wrote is going to be published soon. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your book? What's the title?
Sure.
How did this even come about?
Sure. So it's called The Turtingtons and the Cycle of Poop, a book about stress. I wrote and illustrated it, and it's actually a book about how the digestive system is similar to a stress release symptom. So the idea that there is some kind of intake, right? Digestive system, it would be food, but for stress, it would be something that's stressful, right? And then how we process and digest it and eventually have to let it go. I was trying to teach a client about stress release, but she's younger and adorable. So when she kind of got bored or didn't really want to engage, she would answer with poop. And it was a little bit like nerve-wracking. Like, what do I do? Like, how do I help this client learn something, get something out of therapy, make this actually valuable time for her? And it just kind of struck me in a session. She was really, really talking a lot about poop. And I was like, you know what? Let's lean into talking about poop. So I actually had her draw the cycle of poop. I got approval to include this in the book. But she drew the cycle of poop. And what we did is, through discussing the digestive cycle, we also talked about the cycle of stress and how they're similar. So this story kind of goes into those similarities, but by making it fun, by talking about poop. And she's so adorable. She's still, like, the last day of session when we graduated her out, I gave her a copy and she wanted to read it. And it was just like the highlight of my career, I think. I mean, I haven't been doing this that long, but it was such a nice thing that she felt so seen by it. She really enjoyed it. And she's hilarious. So she's making different voices for the different characters. She's interpreting the pictures differently. It was so, so fun. But it was a way to connect. It was a way to bring where she was to something that would be helpful for her. And it just kind of was funny. It was a funny idea. I told my supervisor about it, my partner about it, and people were just like, you should write a kid's book based on that, because it's so unique. Right. And I did, and that's how this came about. I did have a really cool experience very recently where one of my current clients saw it on our bookshelf, grabbed it, and was like, I'm going to read this one with you.
Wow.
And we have books on our, like, it's not just the one book, right? So I was like, I have shelf appeal.
Yeah.
I think the poop book really sold.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really fun, and something I will cherish as a memory for forever.
That is awesome. When is it going to be published? Where can people find it if they want to purchase the book? Yeah.
Hopefully it will be published in June. It should be on Amazon, and feel free to get in touch with me if you're having trouble finding it. But yeah, should be out in June.
Awesome. Can you say the title one more time of the book?
It is The Turningtons and the Cycle of Poop, a book about stress. And the characters' names are Doopy, Moopy, and Poopy. So it's a really fun read. I think adults like it just as much as the kids do.
Yeah, that is awesome. Crystal, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time again, and thank you for the conversation. I feel like the conversation was so rich. There's so many things that I feel like we can glean from not only the conversation, but just your story, your journey.
Thank you.
How you went from higher ed to the mental health field, and how even your past, experiences in the corporate world, and how that's translating into your work as a clinician now, and how that's going to further translate into when you start your own company, right? Your own private practice. So we're excited to see that. And I really do believe that people tuning into this episode would be encouraged. They'll find hope. Maybe even those that are in the fork in the road again of like, hey, do I want to pursue something? Like you said, this is one life, and do what it is that you want to do, what matters to you, the impact that you want to make. I think that's a message kind of you shared.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. And those of you tuning in, thank you again for tuning into Stories of Resilience. We hope that this episode and this story and journey of Crystal was encouraging, providing a lot of hope and empowerment too. We hope that you like and subscribe. We have more episodes coming out. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, stay resilient, and we'll see you again.